therapist Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist. Thanks for joining me today. Now, I work with a lot of self-proclaimed people pleasers. So these are people who have a hard time saying no or asserting their needs. And the term boundaries has almost become overused in pop psychology. It's sort of become more like a buzzword. So I'm going to stay away from using that terminology and refer to boundaries as safety zones. So if you think about a construction site, it has barriers to keep out unauthorized people and protect the work that's happening inside. So your safety zones shield your inner world from those who might disrupt your progress. And by establishing these zones, you essentially create a secure space to build and grow without unwanted interference. And safety zones are crucial for mental health. They help us maintain our sense of self and keep our relationships balanced. And if we don't maintain them, we can risk feeling overwhelmed, resentful, and even losing our sense of identity. So having clear safety zones really can help reduce stress, because when we know what's expected and what we're comfortable with, we can navigate our social world more smoothly. Our brains just naturally crave predictability. And so without these safety zones, we're sort of in this constant state of anxiety, trying to guess what others want or need from us. And it's very focused on things that are external, versus our safety zones are internal, and they ensure that we are able to stay balanced and regulated and preserve our energy emotionally, mentally, physically, all of that stuff. So first I want to talk about some unhealthy or unproductive safety zones. And so here are a few signs to watch out for. One is, like I mentioned, people pleasing. So if you're always saying yes to others, even when you don't want to, your safety zones are probably a little too loose. You might fear rejection or conflict, so you have this tendency to sacrifice your own needs in order to keep others happy. Number two is feeling a sense of responsibility for others' emotions. So when you think it's your job to keep everyone around you happy, your safety zones really become blurred. You can't control or manage how others feel, and taking on that responsibility is really exhausting. Number three is guilt and anxiety. So if maintaining your safety zones makes you feel guilty or anxious, it's a sign that you're probably not used to putting yourself first. And healthy safety zones really shouldn't come with a side of shame, because it's sort of like that analogy you may have heard, if you're on an airplane, they always tell you to put your oxygen mask off first before you put it on your child. That's because if you are not okay, there's no way you're going to be able to take care of somebody else. So similar idea with safety zones. Then number four is avoiding conflict. So if you're constantly dodging arguments or tough conversations, it means that you're not enforcing your safety zones. Healthy relationships actually require honest communication, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's where safety zones are very important. So why do we struggle with safety zones so much? A lot of people find it really hard to set and maintain them. And a lot of it comes down to our upbringing and societal expectations. So most of us were taught to be polite, to not rock the boat, and to put others first. And, these are well-meaning lessons, but the result is that they can also make us feel guilty when we try to prioritize our own needs. And there's also a biological aspect. So our brains are wired for social connection. And this can make it hard to say no, because the fear of rejection is real, and it can really make us stretch our safety zones to fit in or be liked. So how do we create healthy safety zones and maintain those? Here are some practical steps I want to share with you. Number one is knowing your values. So understanding what's truly important to you is imperative to maintaining and establishing safety zones. Your safety zone should reflect your core values and priorities. For example, if family time is a top priority, you want to set up safety zones around work that allow you to be present at home. This is a big one for me, where, I am done with work at 4:30 and I leave to pick up my kids, and there is nothing that can be scheduled in that time that's work related. That's a boundary or a safety zone that I really keep intact. Number 2 is communicating clearly. So be direct about your safety zones. Use I statements to keep things focused on your feelings and needs. For example, I need some alone time after work to recharge. It's very simple. You're just stating what you need, and it's clearly communicated to the other person. Another thing I find with a lot of my clients is that they will try to use an I statement and sort of put out this safety zone, but they often leave a little bit of room for someone to be able to finagle out of it, so they'll say something and then follow it up with, but if you really need me to, A, B, or C, or leaving room for somebody to not necessarily respect their safety zone. So you want to be really careful about how you are communicating. Number 3 is starting small. So if creating safety zones is new to you, start with small ones. Practice saying no to minor requests before tackling bigger issues. And this helps to build up your confidence and help you see that it is okay to prioritize your needs and nothing devastating is going to happen. So start with like some low stakes types of situations. 4 is to stay consistent. So consistency is key. And if you've created a safety zone but don't stick to it, people will learn that your safety zones are flexible. So you want to be firm and follow through. It's also a lot easier to establish safety zones at the very beginning versus trying to sort of reestablish them once you already have a relationship with someone. So for example, if you are starting a new job, having those safety zones from the get-go and sort of managing other people's expectations of you is going to be a lot easier than if you've been working at the job for 6 months, all of a sudden you're feeling like you don't have great work-life balance or you're getting burnt out, and now you're trying to establish those safety zones. There's going to be a lot more pushback at that point. You can also seek support. So talking to a therapist or joining a support group if you're struggling, having a sounding board can really help you clarify your safety zones and keep you accountable. And so it might seem contradictory that having safety zones actually improve relationships, right? Because a lot of times we think, well, that's essentially keeping people away, or they might think that I'm rude or not prioritizing them. But healthy safety zones aren't just good for you, they're actually good for your relationships, because when everyone knows where they stand, there's less room for misunderstandings and resentment. So having clear safety zones means you're taking responsibility for your own happiness and not relying on others to fulfill your needs. And it creates a more balanced and respectful dynamic. So you're not spreading yourself too thin, trying to meet other people's needs, which then leaves you feeling depleted and no longer able to fulfill that role. And it also leaves you more energized and gives you the ability to be more present focused when you are interacting with people. If you have time to recharge and replenish your mental, emotional, and physical energy, you're going to show up as a better version of yourself. So in a nutshell, safety zones are about understanding and respecting yourself. It's not about keeping people out, but about letting them into your life on your terms in a way that you can show up as the best version of yourself. And so when we set and maintain our safety zones, we create healthier, more fulfilling relationships and ultimately a more balanced life. So I know that we've all sort of struggled with this. An example from my own life where I really kind of struggled and have gotten really clear about my safety zone is in terms of how I space out my clients throughout the day and how many I'm willing to see. So I have learned that I cannot see more than 5 clients in a day, and I need at least 15 minutes between clients to recharge, use the bathroom, do whatever I need to do so that I can show up as the best version of myself for that next client. I know therapists who will see 10 clients in a day back to back, and that works for them, right? One is not right and one is not wrong. It's just a matter of tuning into what your needs are. And those are going to look different for each person. Therefore, some people might not understand, but that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. So I would love to hear about times that maybe you've struggled with maintaining safety zones and how you came to create those in your life. You know, how did you figure out what was important to you and learn how to protect your time and energy? So leave a comment, ask a question, and I'll see you next time.